So a little bit about our organization, the Credit Counseling Society, before we dig into the session. We are a nonprofit organization. And the reason that that might be important to you is that if you're ever in need of credit counseling services, the first question you want to ask is, are you a nonprofit? And the reason for that is because there are for-profit organizations out there in the market, and they charge for their services. So Credit Counseling Society does not charge for the services. And so that's the really important part of it, is that you're not having to pay if you're already financially distressed. I always say, why would you pay for something that you can get for free? So we're 26 years old, a little over 26 years old. We have offices from Ontario west out to British Columbia, and we have a mission that says we help, we educate, we give hope. So the first part of it is we help, and that's where we answer a lot of questions regarding budgeting, credit, or debt. So for an example, today we're here to talk about budgeting. If you have never created a budget for yourself and you feel that you'd like a little bit of help doing that, we're here to do that for you. It's free, it's confidential. You just have to reach out to us, set up a time to meet with one of our credit counselors, and they will help you create that monthly budget for yourself. The reason I think it's a worthy and important time to take out of your day is because of the kinds of conversations that we have with you. We don't just plug in the numbers, but we really try to go a little bit deeper, just to really help you understand. Maybe there's some things in your budget that we can assist you with to drive down some of those expenses. For an example, this morning we had a team meeting, and one of my colleagues was talking about the fact that he is going to cancel a couple of streaming services that he has. And so the average Canadian has 3 streaming services. And that's just one example of the kind of conversation that we would have with you, is to say, do you really need all 3 streaming services? Is there a way that you can maybe minimize that and really cut back on some of those expenses? So that's why it's a really valuable appointment, because we really dig a little bit deeper and help you to find room in your budget for the things that are important to you. The middle part of our mission is we educate, and we do that by providing all kinds of financial wellness webinars like the one you're taking today. And we give hope by operating a debt management program. And this is where we help Canadians get out of debt within 5 years. So how do we do that? We go and we pool all of your debt. So this is unsecured debt. So this is credit cards, lines of credit, unsecured loans. We take all of that debt, we go and talk to your creditors, ask your creditors to zero out the interest on that debt. And the reason they say yes is because with the program, you agree to becoming educated. So you learn money management skills, then you have up to 5 years to repay that debt, no more interest. And by the time you complete the program, not only are you debt-free, but you have a really positive relationship with money moving forward. And that's why clients tell us that we gave them hope. So these are the top 7 reasons why somebody might come to us. As you can see, real life situations people find themselves in. I think the most important message here is that we don't judge, right? So you can reach out and speak to us at any time. So today we have a real action-packed agenda for you. We're going to talk about budgeting, or excuse me, some people like to refer to it as a spending plan. If the word budgeting doesn't appeal to you, then just call it a spending plan, because that's really what it is. It's looking at your income, and it's finding ways that you want to spend that money. We're also going to talk about money values and goal setting. So how do money values and goal setting work together? We're going to talk about expense tracking, the importance of doing expense tracking. And then we're going to talk about all of those irregular, emergency, and savings expenses that you're going to have. And we'll do a little bit of paycheck planning as well. So by the end of the session, our hope is that you'll be able to reflect on your own money values and goals, that you'll be able to achieve some of those financial priorities, or start on that pathway to achieving those financial priorities for yourself. You'll be able to manage those irregular, emergency, and savings expenses, and create and organize your savings. So the top question that we've got here is, what does being better with your money mean to you? So if I were to ask you, well, what you're here today for this session, and if you were to be better with your money, what would that look like for you? So just quickly in the chat, a couple of words. Some of the answers we get sometimes is, I'd sleep better, because we know that financial stress causes people to not sleep well. So is that something you'd like to achieve? Other people feel like, being better with their money would mean less stress. Is that something that you'd like to achieve, less stress in your life? Other people will say things like, being better with my money means that I can actually start to plan ahead now, and I can really see the future. So just a couple of comments in the chat if you, are, interested in doing that. Yes, planning retirement and holidays. Very true, right? I mean, this is one of the things that we're here to talk about today is, we've got a certain amount of income. And I think I said that in the intro letter that went out. We're not here today to talk about any sort of magic potion or lotion that's going to create more money for you. What we're here today is to really look at your existing income and find ways to better manage that money, to be able to achieve the things you want to achieve. And that's really done through through that planning process. So that's great. Anybody else want to add in on that conversation? What are some of the things that you'd like to achieve when it comes to being better with your money? Is it sleeping better? What are the sorts of things that you'd like to achieve? So one of the things that we do talk about here with this question is we do talk about organizing your money so that you can meet your priorities, right? And that's why I said earlier about, whether you call it a budget, whether you call it a spending plan, it really doesn't matter. It's just really about organizing that money that's coming in the door. And when you are able to organize it better, what you'll find is that you're able to realize those dreams that you have, whether that's going on a holiday, whether that's really not having that stress of living paycheck to paycheck, really looking at ways to start to enjoy life a little bit more as well, right? So some of the answers, like I said, that we get when we ask this question around what does being better with your money mean to you. Less stress, right? Reduce stress. That's a big one for people. Sleeping better. Well, we know that sleep is so huge when it comes to our mental health, right? If we don't sleep well at night, if we're tossing and turning, worrying about how we're going to make a payment on a bill the next day, we're not sleeping well, and we wake up and we're just not feeling so great, and we're impatient, because that's what happens when we're tired. We lose our patience. So we're impatient. Maybe we're impatient with our pet or a family member or the other drivers on the road. It does have that trickle down effect, right? So, it's not just about losing a good night's sleep. It's about all of those things that happen the next day as well. So as you start to get control of your money, as you start to really realize how you're going to make this work for you, it really does provide you with that level of hope. And that's what we're hoping for today, is that you'll start on that pathway. So what comes to mind when you hear the word budget? Just give me some, when I say the word budget, what's your reaction to that? What do you think when you hear that word? One or two words is great. Whatever you feel comfortable. Once again, in the chat. Avoid. See, there's a wonderful response to that. Like, it's like, people, scary. Yes, right. People are like, oh, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound like very much fun, right? Like, a lot of people are like, when they heard that word budget, it's like, oh, confusing. Yes, absolutely. A lot of math. Yes, these are great. Keep them coming. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't really know how to, Melanie, with your chat. That's a really good point. Thank you very much for answering it, for saying that, because now I know why they're coming in under the Q&A. Okay, just keep them rolling in the Q&A. Yeah, thank you for that. So distribution of funds, security, yes, absolutely. Accountability, yes, that's wonderful. That's a great word for it, right? So yes, Cindy, did you have if you have a question, by all means, just pop it in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to answer it for you. So those are all really, really good reactions to the word budget, right? So, but what is a budget really? As I said earlier, it's a spending plan, right? And really, it's about spending now and saving to spend later. So when we talk about spending now, there's going to be things that you're going to have to do right now. You're going to have to make that mortgage payment. You're going to have to make that rent payment. You're going to have to pay that hydro bill. So it's about spending now. It's about having to put aside money for the things we have to do right now. It's also about saving to spend later. So it's not just about always spending now, but it is about that vacation. It is about, wanting to put a down payment together for a new vehicle or a home or, education for your children. So a budget or a spending plan also includes those things as well. And it's also a budget is going to be very different for each and every person. It is as unique as you are because it's based upon your own choices and priorities. So what you feel is important is going to be very, very different from what, other family members think, other friends that you have, your colleagues. It's going to be a really, really personal document for you because it is yours, right? So it's just as unique as you are when it comes to how you spend your money. So what does it include? Well, it includes things like your take-home pay. So this is the amount of money that goes into your bank account each month, right? So this is your net pay, and this is what you have to work with, right? And so it's really good to be able to, if you get paid, twice a month, you want to make sure that you're adding those amounts together because a budget is a monthly document, right? So you want to make sure that whatever income you have reflected in your budget is reflective of what comes in your door on a monthly basis, right? So whatever that amount is, that's what goes into your budget. The other thing that it does is it includes your monthly living expenses. So you want to, look at those and go through those and itemize those and see where you're at. It also includes things like your irregular expenses and your emergency expenses. So before we go on any further, what I'm going to do is I am going to switch screens for you. And what I'm going to do is show you our budget booklet. And you may have received this. I hope you received this in an email to you. But what I really want to do right now is just show you when you look at a budget, what goes into that. So just bear with me for one quick second as I switch screens. Okay, so this might just be a little bit overwhelming for you. When you look at this, you think, oh my goodness, look at all those line items there. So hopefully you can see that now. Can somebody just let me know in the Q&A, please, if you're seeing the budget item that's there? Great. Okay, thanks so much for that. Okay, so what you can see here is that it's got a ton of line items, right? And it's a little overwhelming because you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Well, that's why we're here to help, right? So don't worry about the line items. That's why we're here to help you to go through it line item by line item. Obviously, not every line item is going to pertain to you, but the reason why we have such a detailed budget is because we believe at the Credit Counseling Society that every dollar you earn has a job. It's up to you to put that dollar to work. So every dollar that you earn needs to go into your budget, and you need to figure out where is it going to work, right? So this is why we have such a detailed budget that we work with, is because we're following every single dollar that we earn. So you can see up at the top here, it has your income. So as I mentioned, you've got to make sure that you have it reflecting for a monthly income, right? So you'll see also that we've got an initial column and a revised column. Where you want to start when you're starting to do your budget is you want to put everything into the initial column, because what's going to happen is there are going to be line items that you look at and say, I don't know how much I spend in that category. It's somewhere in and around, so it's a guesstimate. So you're going to put your guesstimate into that initial column, and then we're going to talk about how you're going to tighten that up in just a moment, right? But that's the reason why we have those two columns, is because you want to start working, when you start working on your budget, you want to use the initial column to begin with. So moving in under housing expenses, of course, you're going to have things like, if you've got a mortgage, you're going to put all of those sorts of things into your budget. Then we move into things like your phone. So if you do not have a landline anymore and you just have a cell phone, that's great. But please know that you can call your provider. I know the marketplace is getting tighter and tighter when it comes to providers, but you can call your provider and ask them to see if they can do better on what it is they're charging you. So say, are there any discounts that are available? Are there any programs that you have? If you do not ask, you do not get, right? So take the time, call your provider and say, I've been a loyal customer. I've been with you for the last couple of years. I'm really, wanting to see if there's anything you can do to help me here drive down some of these costs. And generally speaking, they will find something for you. As I said, if you don't ask, you don't get. So please reach out to your provider and ask. When it comes to things like cable and streaming services, I mentioned earlier about my colleague who has, 3 or 4 streaming services that he's using right now. Well, it's quite common for Canadians now to have 3 or 4 streaming services, but they maybe only watch one of those. So this is a good opportunity for you to actually look at that and say, what am I doing in the way of streaming services? I got that Disney, we saw that film or whatever, that movie, but we don't watch it very much anymore. Or I got Prime, but I don't watch it anymore. So really, this is an opportunity for you to look at where you're spending your money, where you're spending your time, and maybe start to, unsubscribe from some of those. You can always go back, right? There's nothing stopping you from going back. But, tighten up your budget, find ways that you can save money. And sometimes looking at things like subscriptions is a great place to start. When we move into things like, I missed the part a little bit higher up on that list. When you look at things like electricity and gas, if you're not currently on an equal payments program with your provider, please call your provider and ask them to put you on an equal payments program. You cannot possibly know what it is you're to budget each month if you're on that, you sort of have that, I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be a guesstimate. Is it going to be 300 this month? Is it going to be 600 this month? Like that's really stressful, right? When you don't know how much it's going to be. So call your provider, go on an equal payments program. What they do is they look at your usage throughout the year and they charge you monthly. So it's the same amount every single month. That way, then it evens it out throughout the year. They're very good with their estimates. So you rarely end up having to spend or pay more than what they've estimated, unless your usage goes through the roof. Generally speaking, that doesn't change. It's pretty close to what they've estimated. For me, my anniversary was in August. I had $2.36 extra I had to pay. So that's how tight they are in estimating your usage. So, please go and do that for yourself. It really helps to eliminate the stress. Moving down then into things like living expenses. If you don't know how much you're spending on groceries, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, how you can track certain categories. But if you don't know how much you spend on groceries, this is a really good opportunity for you to figure out what that is. Health Canada suggests around $350 per person per month. Now, this is based on, 1 or 2 people in a family, but if you've got more people in your family, chances are you're not going to be spending that much on each person, right? Because you're able to economize with that number, if it's 4 people or 5 people, whatever the size of your family is. It gives you a guideline. That's what it is, right? So it gives you a guideline. So if you don't know what you're spending on groceries, this is a good opportunity for you to actually figure that out. And then I'll just say that one of the things that you might want to do, rather than just track for a month, with groceries, one of the things you might want to do is do it for 3 months. And it's really the only category that we suggest you do it for 3 months, because usually what we do is we'll go out and we'll do that big bulk buy, right? We'll buy a bunch of stuff and we load up. Next month, we don't buy quite as much. Third month, we go out and do that big bulk buy. So if you just track one of those months, it's not going to be accurate. So do it for 3, divide it out by 3, and that'll be a pretty good indication. So that's a little bit about our budget. And as I said, we are here to help. Don't feel that you're alone. We will sit with you. We'll go through it line item by line item. So you're not alone. You're not alone trying to figure out what that is. And that will really help a lot, because, we're able to provide you with that information on the different categories and how to assess those different categories for yourself. And as I said, if you're looking to drive down some expenses, if you really would like to find ways that you can reduce those expenses, then that's what we're here for as well, right? We will help you to do that. So okay, so any questions at all that came up around what we just went through? It's just a real quick snapshot of what is there. Okay, that's great. Well, what I'll do is I'll very quickly put in the, I don't know if you can get the link in the Q&A. Okay, what I'll do is I'll give out my email at the end of the presentation. And if you'd like a copy of the link to the workbook, then please, just email me and I'll send it out to you, okay? I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the other things that we're going to be looking at are things like your irregular expenses, your emergency expenses, your short-term goals, and your longer-term goals. So a little bit about, how we're going to get there is just by backing it up a little bit and talking about what money means to you. And the reason that we want to do that is, thank you so much, Mindy, for putting your email in. If you don't mind, could you email me? I will give out my email at the end, and then I don't have to worry about taking it now. Thank you so much. So we just want to sort of, like I said, back things up a little bit and just talk a little bit more about what money means to you, because each and every person, and what we're talking about here are what we call money values, and each and every person has different money values. And so the interesting thing about money values is that if I said to you, well, how have things gone for you in your life when it comes to saving? If you were to say to me, oh, Sheila, I tried saving and I'm just no good at it. I really do try, but I'm just no good at it. Well, chances are whatever you were saving for was not in alignment with your money values. So your money values is really the foundation upon which you build any sort of saving goals that you have for yourself. And each and every person is different, and their money values are different. So for an example, maybe your brother, your sister, maybe your money value is safety and security. So how does this manifest in you if your money value is safety and security? Well, I'm going to use an example of one of my colleagues. He grew up in a really, really big family, lots of kids. I think there were 13 kids, including him. So he had 12 siblings, right? And he said, if his mom called dinner and he didn't get to the dinner table quickly enough, literally he got crumbs, right? Because everybody had to get there fast in order to get the food. So when he left his family home and he got married, he said to his wife, I don't ever want to be in that situation again. I don't ever want to come to the dinner table and there's nothing there. So it's really, really important to me that there be enough food on the table, that there be enough food in the fridge and in the pantry and in the freezer. I never have to worry about being hungry again. So if that's your, if that's what you're saying, if you were to reflect back on that and say, well, what would the money value be there? It would be safety and security, right? You never want to be in a situation again where you're going to go without. So you want to make sure that safety and security is something that you value, right? This is your money value. And so that's just an example of how, a money value might manifest itself in your life. For other people, it might be freedom. So they want to be able to, have enough money to be able to come and go as they please, to be able to do things that they want, to not have to worry about, getting out in life and exploring the world, so to speak, right? For other people, it might be choices. And so, how it might manifest for them is they say, I don't want to go to the store and only have to buy the least expensive item. That's no choice. That's not a, that's no, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I can go, I can do my research, I can see the best, whatever it is, television or whatever it is. And I can buy the one that I choose, right? That I'm not restricted by price. For other people, it's independence. I want to put away enough money so that I can be financially independent. I don't have to worry about working another day in my life. If I choose to work, that's great, but it's not like as if I have to work. For other people, it's charity, their ability to give. So how you see this manifested is, giving to the community, giving to their family, giving to their place of worship, right? So this is somebody who their money value and the reason for what it is they do is so that they can help others. For other people, it might be comfort. So you see that manifested. Maybe they wear comfortable clothes and comfortable shoes, and you go to their home and they have comfortable furniture. But everything is around comfort. They drive a comfortable car, right? Everything is around comfort. And then last but not least is adventure. So this is somebody who really wants to go out in life and, jump from airplanes and hold snakes and, do water rafting and, fly off of buildings, and everything is about and it doesn't have to be that extreme either, right? I'm just using those as extreme examples, but that's an example of, somebody who really enjoys adventure. So if you said to me, like I said earlier, if you said to me, well, Sheila, I'm just no good at saving. Then I said to you, what do you save for? What have you been trying to save for? And if your money value is safety and security, and you've been trying to save because your friend wants to go bungee jumping from some bridge, and you're not doing very well at your savings, well, that's because your money value is safety and security. So you're not likely to succeed at saving money to go and do something that's high adventure. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So it really is the foundation of any goal setting that you have, and your money values can shift and change as you go through life. So maybe as a younger person, it was about it was all about freedom, adventure, and then a little bit later in life, you meet somebody, you want to settle down, have a family. It might shift to safety and security, and then you've done well in life and you want to give back, and maybe it shifts now to your ability to give. So you can see how it can change as you go through life. But it's really good to sort of look down that list and see, are there one or two that really resonate with you? Sorry. So now you really want to look at how those money values really help you set your goals. So once you've sort of looked at that list, and like I said, hopefully there'll be one or two that will resonate with you. Now it's really time to say, okay, how do I structure now my financial goals for myself? And we encourage people to form 3 different goals: short-term goal, long-term, medium-term goal, and long-term goal. So short-term goal is something that you can achieve in 6 to 12 months. Medium is 3 to 5 years, and long-term is 10 plus years. So once you get there, once you've created that short-term goal, and let's say 6 to 8 months from now, maybe a year from now, you achieve that goal, then set a new goal for yourself, right? Always have 3 goals on the go at every time, right? As soon as you get there, set out a new one for yourself. So of course, we encourage people to set SMART goals. And of course, it's an acronym. So S for the SMART stands for specific. So if you said to me, well, I want to save money, Okay. What do you want to save money for? It has to be specific. You have to really, really become detailed in what that is. And the more detailed you are, like if you said, well, I want to save money for a vehicle. Okay. What vehicle? Well, I want it to be a Toyota. Okay. What model? Well, I want it to be whatever it is, right? You dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? I want it to have leather seats. Okay, that's great. What does that smell like? Oh, I just love the smell of that leather. Every time I get in my car, I just go, that smells so good. So now you're engaging your senses, right? So the more detailed you can become in your goal setting, the more real it will be for you and the easier it will be for you to achieve. So the next is to make it measurable because you need to know when you got there, right? So you really want to make sure that that it's measurable. So we have the question, how much? How much is that car going to cost? Or how much is that cell phone going to cost? Or how much is that new set of sheets going to cost? Or how much is that new winter coat going to cost? Or that ski trip? Or whatever it is that you are imagining, how much is it going to cost? So the next thing that you want to look at is it achievable? So it has to be realistic, right? So you really want to make sure that when you're setting these goals for yourself, that you're going to be able to get there. And then how does it click in with your money value? So if it's adventure, okay, I can see now that this ski vacation that I'm going to be taking, we're going to go to some really remote places and we're going to fly down hills like you wouldn't believe. And, it's just going to be so adventuresome. Okay, that's great. Now you know that it's tying in with your money value, right? So tie it back to your money value. And then time. Do you need to know what is the deadline? So is this a short-term goal? Is this a long-term goal? Is this a medium-term goal? What does it look like in the way of timing? And if you look at it and you say, well, I don't know if it's achievable. That's quite a bit of money to put away. And you want to make it a short-term goal, which is about 12 months, then say, okay, well, if you don't think it's achievable, maybe you want to extend your time frame. So why don't you make it a year and a half? Does that work a little bit better for you? Yes. Okay, now I can see that I can achieve that. So those are your two variables, is the amount that you're going to set aside and the time frame. So really, look at that and make sure that whatever it is that you set up for yourself, you're going to be able to get there, right? So that's sort of how you make it as a SMART goal. So we're going to do a goal in action. And I really, really hope, once again, I'm going to send out the booklet for you and I really hope you dig into that booklet and actually go in there and set it out. We do find that actually, if you can physically write out your goal, like pen and paper, it is more achievable. It really, I think it's about a 49% success, like over other forms, right? So that's fairly significant. So to go on a vacation is my goal. I want to achieve this in 18 months. So now you put a time frame around it. The total cost of my goal is $1,500. So you've gone and you've looked at it and you've said, okay, how am I going to get there? Where am I going to stay when I get there? What am I going to do when I get there? How am I going to eat when I get there? Am I going to have a place where I have a kitchenette and I cook? Or am I going to eat out every day? Maybe I'm going to have somewhere where they serve me breakfast, so I don't have to worry about breakfast. Maybe I'm going to have to go out for breakfast. So really look at all of those different things. What are some of the tours that I want to go on? What are some of the things I want to see? Then you start to build a budget for yourself for that vacation and you come up with a total. So for this example, $1,500. I will set aside $84 or $38 biweekly to achieve this goal. So what you do is you take the number of pay periods you have in that 18 months and you divide it out by what you want to achieve, right? So that $1,500 divided out by, let's say you've got those, you're going to do biweekly. So the number of pay periods in that number, that's what you divide that $1,500 by. So this is the example, $38. Is $38 too much? You have to ask yourself, is that a little steep? Well, yes, it is. Okay, could you put away 20? Oh, easily. Okay, what about 25? Yeah, 25 works really, really well. I could do 25. Okay, then every pay period you put away $25. So you have to make it work for yourself, right? Because, if somebody looks at that and says, well, that's just out of my reach, then you're not going to achieve it. So make sure it works for you. So the next thing is setting those clear goals. As I said, the more detailed you can be, the easier it is for you to achieve them because life happens, right? It just does. Things happen. A family member gets sick uh, or they need some financial assistance and we're taken off of that path to help that family member, right? So it does happen where life just comes in the way. But the more detailed your goal is, the more real it is for you, the easier it's going to be when you get back on that path, right? Because like even if we look at the pandemic, I mean, who could have planned for that, right? Nobody. So we know that life happens. If you have clear goals that you've set for yourself, it's much easier to get back on that pathway. Pay yourself first. What do we mean by that? Well, you've got this goal now to go on this vacation, and you're going to set aside $25 per week in order for you to, or per pay rather, in order for you to achieve that. So this is where you engage your your financial institution. You go and you say, I'd like to set up a separate savings account for my short, my medium, and my long-term goals. You can have as many savings accounts as you want. You do not pay a fee for them. What you pay the fee for is the checking accounts. So if your financial institution allows you to put a name to those accounts, then put on your short-term savings account my new cell phone. On your medium term, my down payment for my car, or whatever that is that you're going to achieve, and then my long term, my down payment for my home. So if you can name those accounts, then that makes it even more real for you, so that when you're putting $25 a pay into that short-term account, or you're putting $10 a pay into that medium-term account, or you're putting $15 a pay into that long-term account, you can start to look at that account and watch it grow and say, wow, it really is working, right? So as I said, separate savings accounts for each goal. You never want to withdraw the money once you've reached that goal. Never withdraw from your savings account. If you do, you're going to get dinged. They'll charge you a fee. So what you do is you transfer that money. As soon as you've reached your goal, you transfer that money from your savings account into your checking account, but never ever withdraw directly from your savings account. And that's why we say watch out for fees. Make sure that you're transferring that money and not just withdrawing it. So I'll ask you this question once again using the Q&A. Do you know where your money went last month? Just a yes or a no. That would be great. So do you know where your money went last month? Okay, so we've got some yeses, we've got some nos. That's great. Keep them coming. Yeah, and a lot of people will say that. A lot of people will say mostly, I kind of do, kind of sort of know, but there's some things that I'm not really too sure. Like I had money and it's gone, but I'm not really too sure, where it went, right? So thanks so much for that. Yes, so uh, and maybe, yes, exactly. And that's also a very common question. Maybe not really too sure. So what we're talking about here is expense tracking, right? And sometimes if you've never done tracking, it might feel a little overwhelming, right? You might be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. So pick your habit. Pick a habit. And the reason we say that is because you know what your habit is, right? Is it a Tim Hortons habit? Is it a Starbucks habit? Is it a shoe habit? Is it a tool habit? Is it a book habit? Like we've all got a habit. Everybody's got a habit, right? Is it a lottery habit? Is it like, what is your habit? And so it's a lot easier if you focus on that habit and just start out with tracking. Like I said, if you've never tracked before, just pick that one thing to track. And we're coming up to the beginning of February. Just say, okay, February is the month that I'm going to pick, and I'm going to decide, February is the month I'm going to track how much I spend on my habit for the month of February. And so we say, like, don't overwhelm yourself. Just, start by tracking your habit, right? And then what that ends up doing is when you get, let's say it's a Starbucks habit, right? And you get to the end of the month and you add up how much you spent at Starbucks and you say, oh my goodness, that's $230 I spent at Starbucks this month. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of money. But if you say $230 I spent at Starbucks this month, I'm okay with that. I'm a hardworking person. I really like going in and getting that. It's a really important part of my day. I enjoy it. It's important to me. That's great. Put $230 in your budget, because now you know how much it is that you're spending, and you're making a conscious decision to continue spending that money, right? And this is where the sense of control comes in over your money, is you're conscious of it now. You know that's what it is you're doing. But if you look at that and you say, $230, oh my goodness, I make better coffee at home. And I could just go and buy myself a thermos, and I could put it in my thermos, and then I'd have homemade coffee and I'd enjoy it so much more. So now you're making a decision around, I have this information. I've decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to now do it at home. Therefore, I'm going to save X number of dollars. Maybe Starbucks then becomes a bit of a treat, right? You say, okay, once a week on a Wednesday, I'm going to go in and do it, or whatever. But it becomes more of a treat rather than a daily occurrence. So this way, then you now are making a decision. So let's say that instead of $230 a month, you spend $100 a month now at Starbucks. So where is that other $130 going to go? Because remember, each and every dollar that you earn has a job. So now you have to put that $130 to work somewhere else. So is it going to go towards paying down your debts? Is it going to go to groceries? Is it going to go to, long-term savings? Is it going to, how are you going to recalculate that $130? So that's where the identifying room for change comes in, right? Because now you're being informed. You're informing yourself, and you're making decisions around how you're going to spend that money. And as soon as you get that control, now you get that confidence. You say, I really am good with my money. I really do know how to manage my money. I really can see how I can reduce my stress, right? So, it's really good to be able to do that, right? So, yes. And I mean, I think this is the other thing too, is that, as you start to make these decisions, around how you're spending your money, you can start seeing, well, maybe I could put aside a little bit more so that I can go back to school, or maybe I could put a little bit aside so that I can achieve this, right? And I like to say to people, it's not about the amount of money we save. It's about the habit. So I had a woman in a workshop about maybe about 3 and a bit years ago. And I said that. I said, it's not about the amount, it's about the habit. And I said, you could decide that you're going to save every $5 bill that you come across. And it's true, at that time, people were using cash a little bit more than we're using it now, right? Well, she showed up in a workshop I did recently, and she said to me, she came up at the end and she said, I just wanted to, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your workshop and you told me that it's not about the amount that you save, it's about the habit. And I said, oh, okay. I didn't remember her, right? And then she said, and I decided I was going to save every $5 I came across. And guess what? I said, what? She said, I went to Vegas. She was so excited. She had saved every $5 she came across and ended up going on this. She had never been to Vegas. She always wanted to go. She was able to go, and she did it by just saving every $5. So there you go. There's an example of somebody that just really set her mind to it and said, that's how I'm going to do this, and made it happen, right? So it can be something that you can do, right? So how do you track? All kinds of different ways to track, right? There's all kinds of apps that are out there as well. Just make sure that if it's asking for access to your bank account, that you check in with your financial institution and make sure they're okay with that. I don't know if anybody is using any tracking apps at all that they want to share in the Q&A, but if there's something that you like that you've been using and it works well for you, please share with the group. It's always nice to hear those names come up. Also check in with your financial institution and ask, do they have an app? Is there something that you can tap into that they offer, right? So, but the most important thing is finding a system that works for you, whether that's writing it down every time, whether that's, going into your bank statements and highlighting it, however that is, just, make sure that you find a consistent way to do it. So, what are some expenses that occur once in a while? What are some of the things in life that come up for you, but they're not every day, but they come up throughout the year? What sort of things are they? Just once again, using the Q&A, what sort of things come up for you? Oh, we just have a comment, and we're going to do that in just a second, Jane. That's wonderful. So the 52-week money challenge, and at the end of the year, save $1,300. Fantastic. I'm so glad you said that. That is so wonderful. I'm going to show people in just a moment. We do actually have that as one of our slides. So I'm so happy that you were successful with that. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. So yes, dental implants, taxes, gym membership, gifts, car repairs. Yes, these are all what we're talking about here, right? These are all what we call irregular expenses. And they come up for everybody. You aren't the only lucky one that they come up for, right? They come up for everybody. And we divide them into 4 different categories. So we've got the living, housing, living, work, and personal. So when we look at housing, if you own your own home, you're going to have things like property taxes, city utilities, repairs, and maintenance. These are things that are going to come up for you throughout the year. And so it's really good to make a plan, right? How am I going to set aside money to cover these things? Because it's going to be your dishwasher, or it's going to be your freezer, or it's going to be your roof, or it's going to be your fireplace, or it's going to be something that's going to happen throughout the year that you're going to have to spend money on. Whether you rent or your own household items, so pots, pans, curling irons, shavers, toasters, coffee makers. These are the sorts of things that we need to replace throughout the year as well. And then, of course, home insurance. The reason we have little asterisks next to them is because these are the amounts, these are the categories that a lot of people do on a monthly basis when they roll out their insurance across the year. So they might be paying this on a monthly basis. So under living, car insurance, auto maintenance, annual memberships, dentist, optometrist, pet bills, and prescriptions. Work, you might need special clothing, special footwear, things like that for your work. So you need to allow for those things. And then under personal, clothing and shoes for not only just you, but your children, education. We have a public school system, but boy, oh boy, they do seem to want money a lot. And especially at the beginning of the year, it's like a fee for this and $20 for that and $30 for that and $40 for this. And it really does add up. Holidays and birthdays, whether or not that's just, you set a budget for yourself and say, this is the amount that we spend for each and every birthday gift. We never go over that amount. It still adds up, right? And then hair care and salon services and hobbies. So many people forget about their hobbies, right? So what we're suggesting here is that each and every person is going to be different, but how you create this plan for yourself is you decide which categories relate to you. Then what you do is you go back and you look at your spending for the last year. So we're really lucky that we're in the month of January right now. So what you could do is you could go back and you could say, all right, I'm going to go back from January to December of 2023, and I'm going to look at what I spent when it came to car repairs throughout the year. Well, I got those new tires. I had to replace my windshield wiper blades. I got a couple of oil changes. You add that up for the year and you come up with a total. I got my hair cut 3 or 4 times last year. Then I got it dyed. The kids got their hair cut. So that all goes into a number as well. Whatever you spent money on when it comes to these categories, you want to add it up for the entire year. So for this example, this imaginary person added it up and they came up with $3,000 for the year that they spent on irregular expenses. So now what they do is they open up yet another savings account, right? So this is where, once again, savings accounts are free. So you can have as many as you want. But you set up that new savings account, then you add up the annual irregular expenses for the year, and you divide them out by the number of pay periods you have in your year. So if you're paid 26 times a year, you divide that amount by 26, or if it's once a month, you divide it by 12. And then each and every pay period, you transfer that amount into that separate savings account, or you make it automatic, right? This is where you engage your financial institution. You say, I want, $112 each pay period coming off into my irregular expense savings account. And then you track those ins and outs. So only irregular expenses come out of that account. So let's say you want to get your haircut and I don't know, it's $60 for a haircut. You would transfer $60 from that irregular expense account into your checking account, go get your hair done. Next pay period comes along. If you're putting in $112, whatever, that goes back into that account. So it's only those amounts that go in and go out. So here we've got, annual expenses of $3,250 a month, and then $116 biweekly. I have to just say before we move on that when I came to the Credit Counseling Society, I've been here a little over 7 years now. When I came to the Credit Counseling Society, this was the one area that was lumpy and bumpy in my life. I really didn't know about this. I didn't know that you could actually, plan these things. I was always dealing with these, like I called it the rocky road, right? And then things would come out and you'd be like, oh. And then I learned how to do this, and I was like, why didn't anybody teach me this before? I would have been so much less stressed. And I got to tell you, I rarely pull out my credit card anymore. Because when you look at your spending habits, they don't change that much, right? If you've got a car, you have expenses for your car. If you've got kids, you've got expenses for your kids, right? If you've got a hobby, you got expenses for your hobby. So it doesn't change that much. The amounts might change, but those categories don't change. And so having this plan and then working to me, it was just like magical. So that's just my personal take on it. So what are some emergency expenses that have come up for you in the past year? What are some things that have happened? Yes, incoming boulders. That's great. Yes, they certainly are. That's so good. I love it. I'm gonna take that. That's great. Yeah, so just what sort of things? Okay, yes, care auto, yes. You're driving along and then kerthunk, 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 right? All of a sudden you've got this unanticipated expense, right? So the thing about emergency expenses is that they happen. We just don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, or how much it's going to cost us, right? But they happen. Emergencies happen. And so, really putting some sort of a plan in place for them, it really helps to reduce the stress. So a cousin of mine, she grew up in Calgary and went to university in Ontario. And I said to her, the first year she was in university, I said to her, Katie, you need to put together an emergency fund. Put a little bit of money aside for an emergency fund. And she said, well, why would I do that, Sheila? I'm a student. It's all about spend, spend, spend. I said, no, Katie. I said, you're in Ontario. Your family is in Calgary, and you've got your grandmother in Victoria. Put aside a little bit of money just in case, right? So within that first year of her being at university, her grandmother passed away. And she came, of course, flew to Victoria for the funeral and called me up afterward and said to me, thank you so much, Sheila. I would have never If you hadn't have suggested that, I wouldn't have put that money aside. And I'm so glad I did, because I was able to come, and, it made me feel so good that I'd listened to you. So I said, "Oh, thanks, Katie." Sometimes it's good information, right? But it just softens the blow, right? We say short term, aim for three, or longer term rather, we say aim for 3 to 6 months of expenses. And the reason we say that is that if something happens in your employment situation or your health situation, if you have 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside, it really does allow you to take the time you need in order to heal. So I did a skip, dip, and trip on a flat surface a number of years back, and I had to be 6 weeks with my foot up because I did a nice job on my foot. So having money set aside really does allow you to heal properly, right? So that you're not getting up and trying to work and trying to get around and trying to do all of those things on a foot that is not healed. So it really does help, right? Just to have that buffer, and once again reducing that stress on yourself. So now we've got all of this money, right? We've got our short, our medium, our long-term savings. We've got our irregular expense account. We've got our emergency fund. How are we going to keep it safe from ourselves? So the first thing that we suggest is remove access to it on your debit card, right? Just make sure that you don't have access to it. If you have a joint account that you can set up with somebody, and this is, of course, there's lots of different joint accounts, make sure that it's the one where both parties have to agree to that withdrawal. Making those automatic transfers is a great way of not having that money accessible to you, because if it goes in as part of your pay packet and it's there in your account and you're the one that has to transfer that money, you can always find an excuse to spend that $45 or that $25 or that $35, right? There's always something that you can put it toward. So if it's automatic, it goes off into that separate savings account, and you're not tempted to withdraw it, because the minute you look at it, you say, "Oh, I've got $500 in that account. Well, I don't want to withdraw that. I'm doing really well." So that's a great way of staying motivated. And then I don't know if anybody uses the top up roundup method. There's certain financial institutions that offer that. So, do check that out and see if that's an option that's available to you. It just is every time you use your debit card, you can do a top up, and it's a set amount that you agree to with your financial institution. Let's say it's $2. So every time you use your debit card, $2 goes off into a separate savings account. And it's a great way for saving just little bits of money, right? And it adds up very, very quickly. So that might be something, if you have that option, to look into. If you come into a lump sum of money, the 40-40-20 rule is a great way to save money. So if you receive, like I said, a lump sum of money, whether that's a settlement or, even if, you have a wonderful relative, they send you $200 or something like that, then still use the 40-40-20 rule. So 40% right off the top goes into your savings, because this is about paying yourself first. 40% goes towards your debts. 20% goes to guilt-free fund. So if you just take it all and you put it on your debts, boring. If you take it all and you spend it, probably not so smart. So just divide it out. And this way you're covering all of those bases, and you're able to have some fun too, right? So, sorry. So there was a comment earlier about the 52-week money challenge. So I was so glad to see that, because it really does work. It's amazing. If you have somebody that you like to be competitive with in your family, get them on board with this. Say, hey, listen, we can do this 52-week money challenge. And what we do is week 1, we put a dollar away. And then week 2, we put $2 away. And then week 3, we put $3 away. And by the end of it, by the time we get to those 52 weeks, we have $1,378 saved. So if you're somebody who celebrates the holidays in December, you could flip it on its ear. You could say, well, we're going to start out with $52, and then we're going to go 51, and then 50, 49, 48. So that by the time we get to December, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So that way, then you're coming into the holidays, you've got $1,378 set aside just by adding an extra dollar into that savings each week. The reason I left this slide in is not because I necessarily need you to do the survey. But just to remind you that there will be a survey that will be coming. We really do appreciate your feedback. We do hope that you'll, let us know, if you learned something new, and if you enjoyed the session. It does help us to improve. Paycheck planning. So we've all got fixed expenses, variable expenses, and savings expenses in our budget. So this is a great way of dividing those things out. So when you add up all of your fixed expenses, in this example, the total is $22.40. You can divide that out bi-weekly. So $11.20 you would set aside bi-weekly. Variable expenses, groceries, gas, entertainment, eating out. These are things that you'd want to do on a weekly basis. So you divide it out on the weekly, which would be $134 that you set aside to cover those expenses. And then you've got your savings expenses. So whether that's for car maintenance or medical, dental, or household pets, or whatever it is, you've got those amounts that you're setting aside with each pay period. And those two are added up and can be divided out bi-weekly. So 175 bi-weekly. So this is just a great way of really, sort of looking at it from a visual standpoint of all of those different accounts that you have, and how you would manage them. So this is a great way to do it. So your next steps is to create and revise your spending plan or your budget. Please, once again, do give us a call. We are here to help. Plan for those irregular expenses. So go back and add them up for the year, find out what it is you've spent, create an emergency fund, start slow. If you don't have one, $10 a pay period. That's, just start with a small amount, right? And then set your financial goals. So now you're able to reflect on your own money values and goals. You've learned how to achieve your financial priorities. You know how to manage those irregular, emergency, and savings expenses, and create and organize your savings. So here is my email. So it's sheila.cahill@nomoredebts.org. Please reach out to me if you'd like a copy of the presentation, and also if you would like the booklet. I can send that off to you because it's got the worksheets in it. It's got the budget template that you can use, which is a writable PDF. And so you can use that to set up your budget for yourself.